Hi, I'm Kai Jeffries here interviewing one of the best Spanish professors here on campus. So before we get into the good stuff, if you could introduce yourself, so just tell us your name, your occupation, where your country of origin is, and where you live currently.
Okay, my name is currently Marlene McMichael, but I arrived in Georgia as Marlene Roldan Romero.
Mm-hmm.
So you could find me in both ways
Mm-hmm.
at this institution. I'm from Mexico, and I've been here for 10 years.
Okay. So my first question for you is, how difficult was the immigration process, and what did your experience entail? Like, did you come for school initially?
Yeah, that's why I came.
Okay.
There was a program in my university in Mexico with University of Western Michigan.
Okay.
So through that program, I was able to go there for grad studies, and after that, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back or stay, but I was not using English that much
Mm-hmm.
because it was the focus was literature and linguistic in Spanish,
Okay.
and all my classmates were from the Spanish world.
Yeah.
So when you applied for grad school, you had the opportunity to stay one more year through a special visa.
Mm-hmm.
It's called OPI, Optional Practical Training, and that gives you some skills and experience in this part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I just tried to go for it, and that's how I came to Georgia College.
Okay.
And I was just gonna stay for a year,
Uh-huh.
but after a year, I met my current husband,
Mm-hmm.
who is also a professor here,
Mhm.
and that's how I decided to stay. But it was just like a random selection,
Mhm.
like just trying to play with whatever the opportunities were offering, and that's how I'm still here. But and after that, I had to take a test. Of course, they give you a study guide with 100 of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting to learn and understand the current situation.
Mm-hmm.
And actually that helped me a lot to understand what was happening in this part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, I didn't understand because we don't have exactly the same structure back home.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't understand what the real role of the representative was, or
Mhm.
how many are elected,
Yeah.
and how the person is appointed, or
Mhm.
all that was part of the testing. And it was interesting because that helped me a lot in the process. And of course, just the idea that you are being tested in
Mhm.
a different language, and the
Exactly.
fact that someone is evaluating you, and the bad reputation that these people have because
Yeah.
they can be very serious, rude to
Mhm.
you, is what probably makes the whole process more complicated. But
Yeah.
I passed.
That's good.
Then you have to wait. Well, you have to wait, and because a lot of people after Trump were kind of scared, I guess.
Mhm.
Everybody started applying like crazy.
Mhm.
In the past 2-3 years, it went probably 2 or 3 times higher, the
Mhm.
percentage of applications, and with that, the whole process was a little bit slower.
Right.
Because even though I am Mexican still,
Mhm.
I say I was not maintain that identity, but I'm both now. Because of my husband, I was able to get the whole process faster than some of my colleagues that
Mhm.
did it through, the institution.
Mhm.
And of course, if you are Mexican, it's gonna be more difficult than if you are
Exactly.
from Spain.
Right.
So I can't complain. It went fine for me.
Mhm.
It was just money-wise,
Yeah.
but the treatment I received, everything was fair, it was clean. So yeah, I've been lucky, I would say.
Yeah.
Not everybody can say the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. So my next question is kind of like you touched on it a little bit, but if there was like if we lived in an ideal world,
Right.
what would your idea of like a better immigration process be for you? Or like, do you find borders, for instance, necessary? Or would you argue that we could probably or possibly live in a world where we don't need borders and it's much easier for people to go from country to country?
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be my ideal world, no borders.
Yeah.
Because we at the end decided where my work was gonna start and stop, and yours was gonna be the next part of that land. And yeah, we created that world. I mean, just think about in recent years, because it wasn't so many years ago, Texas, California, Arizona were part of Mexico. So politics, history, those events made it what it is right now. But in the past, I mean, even before how it was decided, you can always go back and check how everything started changing. But that would be for me the way to live. Many benefits for everybody. A peaceful way to interact with each other. I understand society. We are savage by nature, and not everybody follows rules, not everybody behaves. Some people take advantage, and that's why all this was created, and all the laws are made for those reasons. But that would be the only way to for me, at least for me, to understand and respect the way it is now, just because otherwise people would just do whatever they want. But in my world, no borders would be the way to go.
What were the hardest parts of American culture to assimilate to?
Well, definitely the language.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, because I didn't have a master degree or PhD in English language, so I just like you, and I don't have anybody in my family who speak the language as a native person. So just every day learning new phrases, and of course the culture is different in a way because Mexicans are more relaxed. We don't always follow rules, and you know that in this part of the world you have to be more serious about it. And probably the seriousness, I was lacking some sort of, I wouldn't say joy, but sometimes Americans can be very, I'm trying to find the best way to describe it, in terms of time, distance, space, affection, can be more self-centered, while we are more inclusive, or we like to touch, we like to be next to each other, and we're just more relaxed in many ways. So that was something to learn from the very beginning, although sometimes you don't feel comfortable just talking in Spanish with your colleagues, if you are in certain places, some restaurants, or at the mall, if you just don't feel the same way. So that's probably the hardest part.
You mentioned earlier that you're married to another professor here, and so if you don't mind me asking, how has your relationship with him been successful in ways that wouldn't be, that most Americans wouldn't typically expect? Have there been any tensions, or has he been very helpful and very supportive in your transition?
Definitely helpful and supportive, but of course there are misunderstandings. And when you come from another culture and you speak another language and he doesn't speak Spanish, it's gonna be more complicated. It's very frustrating when I'm upset. I want to make a point about anything, and because he hasn't dealt with what I've been dealing, he doesn't understand, and he's sometimes trying to help me by giving me the word that I'm trying to say, and I'm like, no, I need to say what I want to say in my own way. So sometimes the lack of patience from his part, because of course I don't speak perfect English, nor fast enough to, communicate my ideas the way I want, can be very frustrating. If I am upset, of course, my brain might be not working well, so I'm trying to say something, and Spanish and English come at the same time, and I start making weird phrases that make it worse, because I'm already under a bad moment. So that's one of the parts, linguistically speaking, but the culture as well, it matters. We joke a lot, and we make fun of ourselves. So here, if you do that, and I learned that I don't have to do that, the person might be offended. But that's the way we are. We just make fun of each other, and we just make fun of life. And when we are suffering, we kind of make joke of everything to make it just probably easier to handle. And in the tone, we Latinos are very passionate, and we sometimes use a higher tone that might be perceived as if we were angry. And sometimes we are just talking. But my husband is like, why are you upset? Why are you yelling at me? Why? No, I'm not. I'm just making my point. I'm just talking. I'm just having a conversation. Why do you always feel that I'm angry or I'm trying to, fight? And it's not the way it is, but it's perceived that way. So we just learned that it's gonna be like that.
Okay. So, what are some things that connect you? Well, first, let me say, ask you. Do you still have family, I'm assuming, back home in Mexico? Everybody. Yeah. Okay. So what are some things that have helped you to connect you with your family and like keep that connection? Or what are some difficulties that you've run into in being so far away from your family?
It was hard at the beginning, very hard. I went through depression for like a year because it was not just my first time in another country, but living by myself completely. So I didn't know how to do anything. And of course, meeting my husband and his family, his friends, and the friends I made in my department from other cultures, that helped me a lot. What I was gonna say?
Like how you said it was very hard in the beginning, but like how did you overcome
technology.
That? Okay.
Definitely technology. We are living in a way it's the perfect world because there are disadvantages, we know, but technology makes it easier. Before it was only emails and Skype, I remember. And right now, even my mama says, I talk to you more than I talk to your brother or your sister. And of course, I don't see them often, but because we are in these two parts of the world, we're always texting each other or calling each other at least once a week. And of course, social media. So if we don't talk to each other, at least we see the person is doing something. And the pictures show you a little bit more about what they did, and that helps a lot with my family, with my friends as well. So technology is definitely the way to connect, to keep the connection.
So have you do you visit Mexico a lot? Do you go back?
Once a year, at least.
Okay.
Sometimes if there is an event, birthday, anniversary, something important, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but at least during summer and during December, the big holidays. So because I can't do it, they are working, but I'm there at least just to spend some time with my parents. At least I don't always see all my family or my friends, but I try to go every year, and I hope I can go during July. Haven't booked anything yet, but that's what I'm planning.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you do go back, do you ever notice a difference in the Mexican culture as times have changed?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it is interesting. Again, the language. It's always evolving. So when I come back, people are talking differently. They are using expressions that I don't know. And of course, if use any social media, I would be lost completely. And yeah, they are sometimes talking about the culture, something that happened, or using phrases that I don't understand. So that's one of the things that every year I find something new in that sense. Because of the social media, the news, all that, it's not that complicated to be aware of what's going on there. So in that sense, I'm okay. And the city keeps growing. We have immigration as well from Germany, from America, some countries in Asia, and from the same country, people from the north and the south are moving to the central area where my family is now. So it keeps growing. It's insane. Yeah. It's good and it's bad at the same time. There are more business, more progress, but at the same time it's chaotic. The traffic, and it's becoming more dangerous. So, but that's something that every year I go, I notice that it keeps changing.
And so, have you ever struggled with having to challenge certain American misconceptions of Mexican Americans at all?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know how I or my colleagues do it. I guess we just go with the flow. And because the class is based on culture, sometimes maybe just the way we present ourselves or present certain content can be a way for some people to open their eyes, their minds. But we also are aware of that condition, and we know that many people are not gonna care no matter what, because why should they care? They have it all, right? So it's hard, but it's part of our job just to try, and maybe 1-3 people may get it, and we have seen that. We see that even though it's not the majority, and it doesn't always happen in every class. There's always at least one person that is able to open her eyes or his eyes and make changes based on that. And that's amazing when you are able to witness that.
Sure.
But it is interesting. Definitely the population we have here is very different. The way we are back home, and just the way we perceive cultures and languages in general. For us, learning a language is it's not a pain like it is perceived here. And we are always learning more, and we want to learn more, and we want to travel, and we want to interact with our cultures, and it's actually perceived like a cool thing, you know. So that's one of the things that pushed me to study what I studied, because I was enjoying it so much, and I was feeling that I needed to share my culture. I wanted to travel and meet other people and have fun, to realize then I came here and it wasn't that way. So it has been hard for everybody. It's in the entire country. We are dealing with that, and I guess again it has to do with the way that politics have put it in people's mind. They don't realize how important and beneficial it is, or they do, but they don't care, because still nowadays, even though the world is more globalized, English is still number one. But it's not gonna be like that anymore.
I don't think so.
It's going fast. Chinese, Spanish, Hindi, and Arab, Korean, many other languages are taking power, and it's very ironic when you come. I mean, United States is the representation of the world. Every single culture that you want can be found in this country. And what is interesting is when you talk to Americans and they don't know that English is not the official language of United States. They can't believe it, but it makes sense why it's not. So hopefully everything changes sooner than later for good, because it's not going to hurt you to know more about the world, another language, develop appreciation about another culture. Just like technology. I mean, you don't have to be savvy, but it doesn't hurt you to get some skills.
Yeah.
It's always gonna be good for you, but
Right.
people
I mean, if you really think about it, knowledge is
scared.
power.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, I think, especially with Americans. It's like fear of losing something that they don't even really have.
you can have both.
Right.
You can keep, like I say, I'm still Mexican. I adopted my American identity because I chose to belong to this society now, and I have to be respectful and just take what comes with that. But I'm still keeping my other identity, so you can have both, and
Yeah.
it's a nice blend. But
Yeah. That's like a perfect segue into my next question.
Oh, really?
So when you first immigrated, did you struggle with maintaining your identity or figuring out who you were? Because, you know, it's one thing to be, you know, a second generation immigrant and you're kind of like, you're born into this society and then you go home and it's a little different.
Yeah.
But it's a whole other thing when you grew up in a whole other country and then you have to come to a new one, and it's just a mix of different things. So
Very different, and it's interesting when you feel that way, and then talking to other immigrants who came under similar circumstances, how we feel different. And it's definitely a feeling that I guess it's just gonna happen. It's not that you don't feel, in my case, Mexican anymore or more American now. It's like being in between those two cultures now. So you become something different. And I used to hear those stories and listen to people who were working in the South, and then coming back and speaking Spanglish and making up phrases, and you were just wondering, what's wrong with this person? What's the person trying to show me? And in a way, it's understandable because their brain is just playing that. But at the same time, the culture, something happens. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's something that is there. It's like you lose something, but you also gain something, and you become just a new product. That's how I can describe it better. But it's a weird feeling the first years, definitely. You feel lost.
Yeah. What is your definition of home? And if someone asked you, you know, where is your home? How would you be able to explain that?
I like the quote, home is where your heart is. But it's true. Yeah, for me, it's not easy to define, but it's where I feel comfortable and connected, and where I can be myself. And it's definitely, I wouldn't say where, but who. Because we always connect home with a place, a location, but it's more about the people to me. So if my friends were in a different part of the world, my family, if they decide to move, maybe I would adopt that as my new home, because it's more about the people. But definitely is what my connection to them and what makes me feel and be better and authentic and just be myself. That's what I define home. So right now, definitely I still keep my family, my friends in Mexico. In Mexico, definitely like my first home, but I have adopted a second one here for sure. Yeah, Georgia.
That's beautiful. Your story has been really inspiring, to say it easily, but I don't know what I was expecting when preparing for the interview, because every story is different. I'm like really moved by a lot of what you had to say. So thank you so much for talking with me and sharing your story.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, of course. This was fun.